A wall of water taller than the Empire State Building once crossed an entire ocean, and almost nobody knows it happened. I'm Obscurophiles, and if this kind of thing makes your brain short-circuit, subscribe, because we do this every week. Let's get into it. The word tsunami comes from Japanese. Tsu means harbor, nami means wave. You've probably heard that word enough times to feel like you understand it. You don't. Not yet. We're going to start with two tsunamis that, while nowhere near the largest ever recorded, left marks on human history that are impossible to ignore. Japan, 2011. The earthquake that triggered it was the fourth most powerful ever recorded since humans started keeping track in 1900. What followed were waves reaching 40.5 meters high. That's a 13-story building moving toward you at 800 kilometers per hour, close to the cruising speed of a commercial airplane. And it didn't stop at the shoreline. It pushed 10 kilometers inland, enough to swallow the entire city of Barcelona and still have 3 kilometers left over. A snowstorm and freezing temperatures made rescue almost impossible. Around 20,000 people died. But here's the thing. That number wasn't even what made this tsunami historic. It was the money. The collapse of the Fukushima nuclear plant turned an already catastrophic event into the most expensive natural disaster in recorded history. Over $300 billion. The entire GDP of Finland. Gone. Now shift to the Indian Ocean, 2004. This one holds the death record, around 228,000 people. A figure so far above any other tsunami in history, it barely fits on the same chart.
It was caused by the third most powerful earthquake ever recorded, which ruptured a fault line roughly 1,300 kilometers long. That's the distance between Spain and Poland, and it moved continuously for 10 full minutes. Scientists still talk about that like it's almost impossible. The planet itself vibrated by up to 1 centimeter. Waves hit 30 meters, 2 kilometers inland. The energy released was equivalent to 5 megatons of TNT, more than double the total explosive energy of every weapon detonated during the Second World War, atomic bombs included. Let me ask you something before we go further, and I genuinely want to know. Drop it in the comments. If you had 5 minutes of warning, where would you go? We'll come back to why that question matters more than you think by the end of this video. So those are regular tsunamis. Terrifying, yes, but they're in a completely different category from what comes next. Megatsunamis. Normal tsunamis happen because of tectonic movement underwater, plates shifting, fault lines snapping. Megatsunamis are something else. They happen when a massive amount of material falls into water suddenly. A landslide, a volcanic eruption, a meteorite impact. The physics are different. The scale is incomprehensible. Let's start with one most people have heard of but don't truly understand. Krakatoa, Indonesia, 1883. The eruption started in May and built for months until August 27th, when the volcano essentially destroyed itself. More than 70% of the island collapsed in a matter of hours, creating an underwater crater and displacing so much water that waves reached 42 meters, a 14-story building, moving. And unlike a building, it didn't stop.
Entire villages were erased. Some areas were never resettled. They eventually became a national park because nature reclaimed them faster than humans could return. A steamship called the Barao was carried more than 1.5 kilometers inland by the force of the water. Everyone on board died. And while all of that was happening, the explosion itself, the sound, traveled 4,800 kilometers to a small island in the Indian Ocean called Rodriguez. The pressure wave circled the entire planet 3 times. Volcanic ash reached the upper atmosphere and cooled global temperatures for years. At least 36,400 people died. But not every megatsunami is nature's fault. Sometimes humans have brilliant ideas, like the Vajont Dam in northern Italy. Construction finished in 1960. Engineers had been warned repeatedly that Monte Toc, the mountain next to the reservoir, was unstable. those warnings were ignored. The dam reached 262 meters tall, making it the tallest in the world at the time. Even today, only 9 dams on Earth have ever been built taller. The reservoir could hold 168.7 million cubic meters of water, 67,000 Olympic swimming pools, 168 million tons, 24 million elephants. Small landslides started in 1959. A large chunk of earth fell into the reservoir in 1960. The authorities kept the dam running. October 9th, 1963. A colossal section of Monte Tauk detached from the slope and fell into the reservoir. The water had nowhere to go. It generated a wave 250 meters tall, an 83-story skyscraper that flew over the dam and obliterated 5 towns in the Piave Valley below. 2,000 people died. The dam itself survived. The towns did not. That detail should make you deeply uncomfortable about who was responsible. But even Vajont doesn't hold the modern record. July 9th, 1958, Lituya Bay, Alaska. A remote, nearly inaccessible inlet with a distinctive T-shaped geography, surrounded by mountains and glaciers. Essentially a natural trap. An earthquake measuring magnitude 8 struck the region that night. It triggered a landslide that dropped roughly 30 million cubic meters of rock and earth into the narrow fjord at incredible speed. The impact displaced water with such force that it generated a wave 524 meters tall. That is the height of One World Trade Center, the tallest building in the entire Western Hemisphere. The wave tore up the sides of the surrounding mountains, ripping out millions of trees and stripping the land bare up to 200 meters above sea level. The damage is still visible today. 5 people died. Almost nobody was there to witness it, which is the only reason the number wasn't catastrophic. The event was so extreme and so unlike anything previously documented that it essentially created a new scientific category. The term megatsunami was coined to describe specifically what happened in Lituya Bay. But Lituya Bay isn't even close to the biggest landslide megatsunami in geological history. Approximately 1.5 million years ago, the northern half of the East Molokai volcano in Hawaii collapsed catastrophically into the Pacific Ocean. The megatsunami that followed reached 610 meters near the origin point, 2 Eiffel Towers stacked. The wave traveled across the entire Pacific and eventually hit the coasts of California and Mexico. What remained of Molokai after that collapse are now the tallest sea cliffs on Earth, over 900 meters high. If you visited the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland and felt dizzy at 214 meters, Molokai would genuinely not be safe for you to visit. 900 meters that appeared basically overnight on a geological timescale. Now we leave landslides behind and enter the territory of impacts from space. 2.5 million years ago, an asteroid between 1 and 4 kilometers in diameter hit the Pacific Ocean south of Chile, the Eltanin impact. The ocean floor there is 4 to 5 kilometers deep. The impact was so violent, it evaporated approximately 150 cubic kilometers of water instantly. 60 million Olympic swimming pools gone as vapor in seconds. The displaced water generated waves over 200 meters tall, which devastated the southern coast of Chile and the Antarctic Peninsula. Big. Unprecedented. And still, not the largest. 66 million years ago, a colossal asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. You know this one. It's the impact linked to the extinction of the dinosaurs. But what most people don't talk about is the megatsunami. In the Gulf of Mexico, waves exceeded 1.5 kilometers in height. That is nearly 2 Burj Khalifa stacked on top of each other. Entire mountain ranges would have been submerged. Here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. That asteroid hit in relatively shallow water.
If the impact had occurred in deep ocean instead, wave heights could have reached 4.5 kilometers. At that scale, in Europe, the only places that would survive are the peaks of the Alps, the Pyrenees,
and a few points in Scandinavia. Everything else, every coastal city, every lowland, every river valley, gone. The Americas and Asia would fare better, with the Andes and the Himalayas offering real shelter. Oceania has no land above 4,600 meters. Africa could only find refuge at specific high points in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. Think about that the next time someone complains about mountains being inconvenient to travel through. So, could any of this happen today? Scientists have identified several regions where a megatsunami is considered a genuine, if rare, possibility. British Columbia, Hawaii, Norway. But the scenario that gets the most attention among researchers is La Palma in the Canary Islands. The Cumbre Vieja volcano has a flank, a section of its western slope, that some geologists believe could detach and slide into the Atlantic Ocean in a single event. The simulations are not subtle. Waves near the island itself could reach 1 kilometer. After crossing the entire Atlantic Ocean, the waves striking the American coastline would still be around 50 meters tall. 50 meters. That's a 17-story wave hitting Miami, New York, Lisbon, Morocco. The current scientific consensus is that this specific catastrophic collapse is extremely unlikely within the next 10,000 years. The volcano would need very specific conditions to fail that dramatically all at once, rather than in smaller, more gradual events.
And if you came into this video thinking tsunamis were something that happened to other people in other places, I hope that 5-minute warning question from earlier feels a little more personal now. Because the ocean doesn't negotiate. It doesn't check if you're ready. It just moves.